Hey guys, welcome back to Lifestyle School, the podcast where we cut through the noise and help you build a lifestyle that supports your health, energy, and long-term weight loss. I'm Hope, and in today's episode, we are diving into the topic that is often overlooked but very crucial to your success, and that is your digestion. And if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right with food and still feeling bloated, tired, maybe inflamed, or just stuck with weight that won't budge, it might be time to look a little bit deeper because what you eat matters, but how you digest, absorb, and use that food matters just as much, if not more. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about why stomach acid is essential for fat loss and metabolic health, the problem with acid blocking medications like PPIs, and why they were never meant to be used long term, how your diet might be quietly wrecking your gallbladder, and simple, powerful steps that you can take to fix these root issues. But before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone that I'm not a medical doctor and everything on this podcast is for educational purposes only. And if you want to change something in your diet and lifestyle, your medications, you need to be working with a qualified healthcare provider to do that. So, with that, let's get into today's episode. So, I want to start with just talking about stomach acid. I actually had a client recently reach out to me asking about a supplement that someone had given her. And what do you know? It was a digestive enzyme supplement. So I was like, this would be a great podcast episode to do because it's something that came up in clinic a lot when I was working with patients. And even in my own journey, it's been a really important tool to helping me get to where I want to be. So, we're going to start by stalking. You guys, maybe one day I will learn to talk. We're going to start talking about stomach acid. It's also called hyaluronic acid or HCl, and this is the unsung hero of digestion. So most people don't realize that the breakdown of food really, I mean, it starts in our mouth, but there's a huge portion of that starts in our stomach. I think most people think that maybe digestion mainly happens in our intestines, but that's not really the case. And if you are low on stomach acid, that entire digestive cascade really starts to fall apart. And so I'm going to talk about why this matters. So, first, stomach acid activates a digestive enzyme called pepsin, which is required to break down protein into amino acids. And you need amino acids for pretty much everything. We've talked about them at length in some previous episodes, but you need them for muscle growth. You need them for neurotransmitter production, like dopamine and serotonin, which are, really important brain hormones. You need them for hormone synthesis. You need them for immune function and so much more. So if you're not digesting protein properly, your metabolism is already compromised. And so, secondly, stomach acid allows you to absorb vital nutrients from the food that we're eating as well. So, I'm talking about things like B12, iron, calcium, magnesium, zinc, some of the most important nutrients for thyroid function, energy production, immune health, and of course, weight loss, right? And without stomach acid, those nutrients pass through oh my, I'm struggling tonight, guys. I apologize. But they pass through undigested and then unused, which is really a tragedy, right? Especially if you're buying real good, high quality food. You want to get everything you can from them. And third, it protects you. So HCl kills harmful pathogens that enter your body through food. Think of this as bacteria, parasites, yeast. I know on the internet there's like a ton of stuff talking about parasites in different things. And the good news is that if you have a lot of like a healthy production of HCl in your stomach, it's going to kill parasites when it gets to your stomach, right? If you by chance eat something that has a parasite, but it's going to kill things like parasites, yeast. And really, your stomach acid works as a shield. But when it's low, your gut becomes a breeding ground for overgrowth and infections, unfortunately, which can trigger inflammation, insulin resistance, and autoimmune issues. And fourth, your stomach acid triggers the release of bile from your gallbladder and enzymes from your pancreas, right? These are two really important organs. You probably hear me talking about the pancreas a lot because that is what produces insulin. But today we're going to talk more about the gallbladder, which is also an essential part of the digestive process. And if that initial stomach step is weak, the rest of digestion is compromised, leading to feelings of bloating, maybe constipation, and poor fat breakdown. And by that, I mean the foods that you're eating, the fatty foods that you're eating. So the next time you're feeling bloated or maybe you have heartburn, don't just reach for an antacid or assume that like you have too much acid, because this is something that I was shocked to learn many years ago, but most people, especially if they're over 40, actually likely have too little stomach acid. And we're going to get into that today. And it's for a number of different reasons. And so I wanted to touch on today talking about proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, because they are one of the most overprescribed medications in America. I'm sorry, I am going to pick on them because I have a problem with it because so many patients that I have worked with have been on PPIs. And um, they work by shutting down our body's ability to produce stomach acid. And what's really important to know about PPIs, if you have been on one or if your parents are on one or someone you love, they were meant to be used short term. And I want to say this again, they were only approved for like 4 to 8 weeks of use in their clinical trials. That's it. But there's millions of people who have been on them for years, sometimes even decades. And I've seen many people in clinic who have been on them for decades, and they honestly have no idea really the side effects that can come along with being on a PPI or a proton pump inhibitor for a long time. And so um, they've never been studied over the long term to be proven to be safe, yet they're prescribed and they're taken almost like multivitamins in some cases. And this is what happens when you're on a proton pump inhibitor or even just taking a lot of antacids over the counter long term is they impair the digestion of protein and fats, which is a big deal. They create massive deficiencies in nutrients like B12, iron, magnesium, and zinc. You increase your risk for infections like C. diff or pneumonia, and it disrupts your gut microbiome, which is essential to health, immune function, and weight loss. And there's growing evidence that long-term PPI use can cause things like osteoporosis, kidney disease, and even potentially cognitive decline. So um, it's a really important topic that I just wanted to like put out there. Again, if you're on a medication, I'm not a medical doctor. You need to talk to your doctor about this. And, if you feel like you don't have a practitioner that's listening to your concerns, maybe it's time to find another one who's willing to look into what the negative side effects could be of the long-term use of this. But um, you it's something that you want to be paying attention to. And this is something that I also think is important to note is when you abruptly stop taking proton pump inhibitors or a bunch of antacids, they often experience something called rebound reflux, which is a temporary surge in acid that feels worse than ever. So then, you think, see, I really do need this pill to feel okay. But what they're experiencing isn't a return of their conditions. It's a withdrawal from a drug that's hijacked their system, right? So if you're taking a PPI, please don't stop cold turkey, but know this, it's possible to get off of them safely by supporting stomach acid naturally and correcting the root cause of your symptoms. And again, make sure you're working with a qualified healthcare practitioner to do this. And so let's pause for a moment before we move on from stomach acid and talk about what actually causes your body to stop producing enough of it in the first place, right? This is what we really need to be talking about because most people don't suddenly develop poor digestion overnight. It's a result of small daily habits that slowly chip away at our digestion over time, right? And so here are some of the biggest culprits that shut down stomach acid production. Number one And we talked about this last week. This is a big one that we've been talking about. It's chronic stress. Okay, guys, we can't let ourselves be stressed out. No matter what life is throwing at us, we have to choose to just stay calm. We need to stay in prayer. We need to just submit our worries to Christ and let Him take care of them and keep taking one step in front of the other. When we are stressed out, if we're running late, if we're eating while we're scrolling, if we're arguing with our kids in the car, you're in a flight or fight mode, and digestion is the last thing your body wants to focus on. Your body literally turns off your stomach acid production when it thinks survival is more important. So you could be eating the most nutrient dense meal ever, and it won't matter because your body isn't digesting it properly because you are watching an action film on the TV while you're trying to eat and digest. This is why eating in a calm, present state is so important. In lifestyle school for like weight loss, my course, we go deep into like what is good eating hygiene. I know as like a mom, it's so hard for me. Well, I've gotten a lot better, but it can be so hard to like sit down and eat my meal and not eat at the counter or like bites as I'm running around the kitchen doing stuff for everybody else. But eating hygiene is so important because of how it results in our digestion. We can't digest in a fight or flight, and we need to be in rest and digest mode. And so just doing, things like sitting down, have everything on your plate, sitting down, taking a moment just to breathe in the smell of your food, because even that is like breathing in the scent of your food actually starts the digestive process. I just posted about this recently on my Instagram, but it's called the cephalic phase, and it's going to help your body start producing the right hormones for digestion. So doing that, praying, thanking God for your food, like just being thankful for the food that's in front of you, sitting there for a minute and then taking that first bite and then chewing it and smelling it and tasting it and enjoying it and doing that over and over again. It's like such a breakaway from, I think, culturally kind of what we've gotten into, which is like eating in front of the TV or eating in the car on the go. We haven't been eating in a way that's going to promote rest and digest, right? Another factor that leads into the resulting low stomach acid is low protein, low fat diets. So your body adapts to what you feed it, which may not be surprising to you, but if you're eating a diet full of processed carbs and little to no real protein or fat, your body doesn't get the signal that it needs to make stomach acid, right? Because those are quickly, easily converted into glucose. And it doesn't take a lot. There's not like that thermogenic effect of food when you're just eating carbohydrates that are likely very processed, right? So you've essentially trained your body to underproduce acid because there's no need for it. And if this has been your pattern for months or years, your stomach becomes weak and kind of like a muscle that's never used. It takes time to build it back up. So that is something to be aware of. Number 3 is zinc and vitamin B deficiencies. So our body needs the raw materials to make stomach acid, and the main nutrients involved are zinc, vitamin B1, and B6. So if you're not getting enough of those in your diet, or if you're not absorbing them because of low stomach acid, it can be a really vicious cycle. And let's be honest, most people aren't eating enough zinc-rich foods like oyster and liver and grass-fed beef or pumpkin seeds regularly. This deficiency is increasingly common, and especially in people with a history of restrictive dieting, veganism, or heavy PPI use. Number 4 is eating too fast or distracted. And I kind of talked about that when I was talking about stress, but this is a really hard one for me. I grew up with 6 siblings, 5 of which were brothers, 2 of which are 6'10" in height. And so it was like the Hunger Games, where if you don't get that food on your plate immediately and eat as fast as you can, like there's just like no chance you're getting seconds. And then once it's gone, it's gone. So speed eating or eating on the go or working through lunch tells your body this isn't a meal worth preparing for, right? And I kind of talked about this, but your body doesn't release acid if you haven't given it the time to sense and prepare for the food. So the first phase of digestion, like I talked about earlier, is the cephalic phase, and it requires you to see, smell, and taste your food before eating. So taking again those 2 to 3 deep breaths before a meal, sitting down, chewing thoroughly can make an absolute massive difference in how well you digest. Number five, this might be a shock to you, but hopefully not, is that you can actually drink too much water during your meals. A little bit of water is fine, but when people drink, 12, 16 plus ounces of water in the meal, that does dilute your stomach acid and your digestive enzymes. It makes me think back to a time when I was in either middle school or high school, and I went to the Olive Garden with a youth leader, and I was never really allowed pop, hence, my dad being a functional medicine doctor. And I got a root beer, and like when we sat down to eat, and I think I had 8 root beers before my chicken fettuccine Alfredo came. The waitress just kept refilling it, and actually the gal I was with like made a joke about it. But this just like goes to show the really dysfunctional eating and probably why I've dealt with insulin resistance as an adult because of these crazy habits. But not only was my blood sugar wildly out of control at this point, I'm sure my stomach acid was so incredibly mixed up because of all of that soda and the acid, like all the different chemicals that were in that, and then just like the straight up dilution of my digestive enzymes. So we need our stomach environment to stay acidic, and the constant dilution from big glasses of water can weaken that environment and slow down our digestion. Okay. Number six, again, we've kind of talked about this, but it's worth repeating. Acid blockers shut down production at the root. And so your body won't make more acid if it's been told for years that it's not allowed to. So if your digestion feels sluggish, if your stomach acid is likely, the problem. Sorry, I'm saying this wrong. Your stomach acid is likely not the problem. It's a symptom of deeper dysfunction that your body's actually not producing enough. And the way you eat, the foods you choose and how you show up at mealtime all plays a role in whether or not your body's going to produce the enzymes it needs to digest and absorb your food. And so now I want to kind of transition away from stomach acid, and I want to talk quickly about gallbladder dysfunction. Because it's really important. So many people don't actually have gallbladders. It's a very ignored organ until it's inflamed and painful and taken out completely. But your gallbladder plays a role in digestion and in metabolic health. And first, I want to tell you what it does. So your gallbladder stores bile. It's a digestive fluid made by your liver. And when you eat fat, your gallbladder squeezes out bile to help you digest and absorb it. Bile also helps you absorb fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K, and it plays a key role in detoxification. But here is where things get tricky. Most people today aren't eating diets that, or I should say, most people are eating diets that are low in real fat. They're not eating high enough, like real high quality fat diets. They're eating diets that are high in processed carb and refined oils. So those are like the vegetable oils, seed oils, as people call them online. They eat a diet lacking in fiber and nutrients. And this type of diet sets the stage for gallbladder dysfunction, and here's how. So low fat diets mean your gallbladder doesn't actually get triggered to empty. Bile becomes thick and stagnant in there, and it turns into sludge or even stones, which can be extremely painful. High sugar diets increase cholesterol in your bile. I bet you didn't know that, which makes it more likely to crystallize. And again, you're going to result in those stones. Having bad meal habits or even fasting habits without adequate fat can also lead to bile stasis, excuse me. And inflammation from processed food damages your liver and bile production. Like fatty liver disease is such an issue these days. I think in young adults, or is it young adults? trying to pull this stat out of the air, but it's like 30% plus have fatty liver disease, and it is becoming quite a common issue, and that is going to result in issues in your gallbladder. So the result is from this type of diet is gallstones, bile sludge, and eventually potentially a gallbladder removal. And here's the reality: over 20 million Americans have gallstones, which are incredibly painful. 600,000 gallbladders are removed every year. And this problem is just continuing to grow, especially in women and people under 40. And once your gallbladder is gone, your fat digestion becomes even more difficult, and that impacts your hormones, your energy, and your metabolism. I've worked with many clients who have had their gallbladder removed. It's actually something I typically ask people because I am a fan of a higher fat diet because fat, like real whole fats, are the macronutrient that has the least impact on insulin. And so if someone is really hyperinsulinemic, we usually switch them to a high fat, moderate protein, low carb diet to help just start to switch the lever, get their hunger under control, and get their insulin down so they can actually start accessing that extra body fat. And that is really difficult to do if someone doesn't have a gallbladder. So there are, things you can do if you don't have a gallbladder, bile salts, ox bile, like you can get a supplement that's a combination of HCl as well as ox bile that's going to help you digest fats. But there's many things you can do, but if you can keep your gallbladder, you should, right? Because that's how you were created to work. So things to watch for and what to do about it. If you're dealing with low stomach acid or gallbladder dysfunction, if you feel overly full or bloated after meals, if you have reflux or heartburn, even on a clean diet, if you see undigested food in your stool, maybe mine is corn because I don't know that anyone digests corn these days. If your stool floats or if it's a pale color, that's actually a sign that you're not digesting fats. And if you feel nauseous after eating fatty foods, if you have brittle hair and nails, thinning hair, or fatigue, if you're taking supplements but wow, guys, the struggle is real. But if you're still showing signs of deficiencies, those can all be a sign of low stomach acid or potentially gallbladder dysfunction. So what can you do about it? For your stomach acid, really what you need to start do is eating in a calm, present state. You got to put your phone away. I know that's so hard, but eating while on your phone is horrible for you. Chew your food thoroughly, 30 plus times. Use a splash of apple cider vinegar or digestive bitters before meals, or take a supplement, which is what I do. Don't guzzle water while eating. Make sure you're getting enough zinc, B vitamins, and quality protein. And then talk to your practitioner about trying something like HCl with pepsin if you're over 40 or showing signs of low acid. That can be truly helpful. And I'll tell you a little about an HCl challenge here in a minute. But first, let's talk about your gallbladder. So if you are worried about your gallbladder function, stop fearing healthy fats because your body needs it. Eat real whole foods and ditch all of the ultra processed junk. Include bitter foods like arugula, dandelion, and beets into your diet. Those are going to help your gallbladder. Stay active. Daily movement helps bile flow. And then avoid crash diets and super long fasts without fat, especially if you already have really sluggish digestion. So before we wrap up, I want to tell you guys a little bit about an HCl challenge. This is something we did in clinic a lot, and this is something that was really a wake-up call to me and my production of HCl, hydrochloric acid. And it involves taking a supplement dose of beta HCl with pepsin at the beginning of a protein-rich meal and then observing how your body responds. So this is how it works. The idea is really simple. If you don't feel anything, there's a good chance that your stomach acid is low. And if you feel a burning, warming, or discomfort in your stomach, your acid levels may be adequate or you're close to your personal dose threshold. So this is how step by step you would do it. Pick a meal with at least 20 to 30 grams of protein, like chicken, beef, fish, or eggs. Don't try this with like a smoothie or a salad. You want to have that protein because HCl really helps break down proteins into the amino acid form. Eat as normal and observe how you feel. So, sorry, I skipped a step. Get that 20, 30 grams of protein on your plate. Take one capsule of beta HCl with pepsin at the start of the meal, not before or after, but within the first few bites. Eat at a normal pace and observe how you feel. If you feel that like warm, burning, uncomfortable sensation in your upper stomach, especially under the sternum, it may mean your body doesn't need the extra acid. If you feel nothing, though, you may be low in acid and able to tolerate more. So at the next protein heavy meal, take 2 capsules and then repeat this process, increasing by 1 capsule per meal until you have that, warm burning sensation, which at that point reduce by 1 capsule and move forward. But if you reach your upper limit, and usually that's around 5 to 7 capsules without discomfort, that's a strong sign that you have pretty low stomach acid. And I will tell you, every time I have done this challenge, and I've done it probably 3 or 4 times, I think the highest I ever got up to, and maybe I should be telling you this, but is 9 capsules. And I have never once had an uncomfortable burning sensation in my sternum. So I don't produce acid well, at least not at this point. Hopefully things get better, but I regularly supplement HCl with my meals, and I feel so much better when I do. So a couple notes though that I want to make sure it's really important that if you want to do this, you write it down. Always take with food, never take HCl on an empty stomach. If you feel discomfort or burning, don't panic. Drink a glass of water with a little baking soda or milk, and that's going to neutralize it. People with gastritis, ulcers, or a history of GI bleeding should not do this test without supervision. I'm going to repeat that for the people in the back. People with gastritis, ulcers, or a history of GI bleeding should not do this test without supervision. And then lastly, this is a self-experiment, not a clinical diagnosis, but it can be a helpful starting point to know if you should explore low stomach acid further. So, if you find that you can take 4, 5, or 6 capsules without symptoms, that tells us something really important. It tells us your body is likely not producing enough stomach acid to properly break down protein and absorb nutrients. And, this can lead to things like cravings and blood sugar crashes, poor muscle maintenance, low B12, iron, and magnesium, thyroid dysfunction, and things like chronic bloating or reflux. So for many of my clients struggling with stubborn weight, poor digestion, or even things like fatigue, this is a hidden issue that needs to be addressed to move forward. So in closing, here's the bottom line. You're not just what you eat, right? You are what you digest, absorb, and then eliminate, right? I'm going to say that again because I think this is like a really good point. The famous saying, you are what you eat. And it's like, yes, you are, but you are what you digest, absorb, and eliminate. So if you're doing all the right things and still not feeling your best, your digestion might be the piece you've been missing. Supporting your stomach acid and gallbladder doesn't just improve digestion, it rebuilds your metabolism at a cellular level, and it reduces things like inflammation, it boosts your nutrient status, and it sets the stage for long-term weight loss and energy, which is what we're all about here. And this is exactly the kind of work we do inside of Lifestyle School. We go upstream, we look at the root, we try to help you create a lifestyle your body actually wants to thrive in, because what that does is it makes weight loss feel like an afterthought, right? And we want weight loss to be easy because that's the only way we're going to maintain it long term over many, many years. So as always, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for listening. If this episode gave you any aha moments, I would love it if you would share it with someone who needs to hear it. I would love it if you would like and subscribe or leave a comment. This always helps us get the word out about, metabolic health and these issues that many people don't look at when it comes to their weight loss journey. So as always, thank you so much for being here. I just want to say, keep going. Healing is possible. You're not broken, and really that you are worth the effort to get healthy and to achieve the weight and the health that you desire. So keep going, guys. and we'll see you at the next episode of Lifestyle School.